All right, we are working here. Okay, very good. All right, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today. And I'm just going to walk you through this program that we're doing on open space, kind of give you some background on where it is. And Tucker's going to talk about the more complicated, detailed data side of things. So, all right. So again, I'm doing the background. We have Tucker will talk about the open space inventory, the kind of the details behind it. And he's going to talk about an analysis we did. And there's a component for how we're going to maintain it. And then we're going to show you the app that we have so you can look at the data. All right, so let's get into the background. You as planners know why you want to have an open space inventory. I created this slideshow for GIS folks, so I had to make a pitch to why we want to know where our open space data is. But so you got uses for conservation. You want to know where you can conserve land. You want to know you can develop land. And we also care a lot for this project about how that land can be used to protect property in a flood, to make properties more flood resilient. So we realized that WestCOG, our data really needs an update. We had some pretty stale data, and it lacked detail, integrity, consistency. But what I'm talking about is we have different data for the north than we do for the south. The data from the south that's good, like has a lot of details, is from 2008, so that's pretty old. There's the data from deep, and that is from 2011, I think. And so we're using these different data sets. And then the WestCOG data set, actually, when we opened it up, I realized was the GIS data. It was really scrambled. You click one property and all of them would be popped up as one item. So it looked like we had one open space property. That was kind of upsetting when I found that. So we were in big time need of updating this resource. So that's why we really wanted to get a chance to do this. But that data isn't like a screaming priority for us, so we found an opportunity that really put us to get focused on it, and that was through the Nature Conservancy. The Nature Conservancy had a funding opportunity, but they were looking for projects to kind of use that money kind of rapidly, and it had to be resilience focused. So I pitched open space inventory because there's a connection that open space properties can be helpful in floods through the community rating system, which is this FEMA flood program. And I'll do that quickly. I'll talk about what that program is, but they liked the pitch. It allowed us, WestCOG, to get a much better inventory of open space. It gives them a tool to incentivize and communicate to towns that are interested in being involved in the CRS program, at least how they can get one of their big point winners, without having to do much work. So I want to acknowledge the CRS program is a lot of work, and for each community that wants to do it, that's their choice, and it can be good for you as you see fit. But we would do the open space part of it, which would be helpful. All right, so they liked it. They bought on. I got the schedule down in the corner there. It was like a 13-week project that we put together. So to help with the community rating system, just quickly, I know I've done presentations on this before, and you've probably heard all about this, but you can get discounts for people who have flood insurance. People are paying their premiums. They can get a 5, 10, 15% discount, depending on how much flood resilience work your community is doing, and you are able to prove that they're doing. So you have to showcase how you're doing it to verify it. And so that's a program that WestCOG attempted to regionalize, and the original plan back in the day was a WestCOG program that does everything for you, and you just receive the benefits. And then we found out how intensive it is on the municipalities end. Even if we were running it, it would have to be a ton of, not a ton, but a lot of work to get it going. So it kind of went on the wayside. We have this new approach now where WestCOG will be a support resource. So if a town wants to get in, we'll show you how many points you can get. We can provide data and resources for you to get those credits. We're not necessarily administering the whole thing. All right. This is just showing the amount of savings. These are estimates about how much money are being paid. Oh, this is the one on losses. So this is the example of how much are being paid in losses to flood damage. And you can see the majority are our coastal towns. And this was back in 2017, so it's a bit older, but it's a rough idea that the majority are coastal towns. All right, and this is talking about how much you'd be saving. So it's like in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it's over a bunch of people. So I don't know what it is per person, but overall, it's a nice collection. So, that's why we think it'd be good if towns can get in this program, make their communities more resilient, get some reductions in costs for some of their property owners. That's cool. And if they do it, we want it to be as easy for them as possible. But again, this is the more the focus project is about open space. Oh, and lastly, not only is it good for us to have open space data for our planning purposes, and it's good for the CRS purposes, it's also good for the sustainable CT purposes. So if you're involved in the sustainable CT program, this inventory is one of those credits. So you can just pull and rip it and say, here's our inventory. You can get 5 points for having an open space plan. And that plan is pretty much just an inventory of open space. So we have to score some points there for your communities through the sustainable CT program. And a lot of towns in WestCOG are involved in sustainable CT. I think it's 13 off the top of my head. And this was an easy thing to do because, well, I'll talk about it later, but Naugatuck Valley helped build the schema that we're using for this data. That's why I gave him a shout out there. All right, and now it's off to Tucker to talk about the inventory and how we define open space and what we collected. Take it away, Tucker.
Thanks, Mike. So because we're trying to meet the requirements of the Sustainable CT program and the CRS program, we wanted to go with a very broad definition of open space. These are some existing definitions from EPA and DEEP. These are a bit more focused. But according to the CRS program, open space is land anywhere that's free from buildings, filling, significant pavement, or other encroachment to flood flows. What the CRS program is really concerned with, though, is with preserved open space. This is land that's in some way guaranteed to be preserved as open space because they want it to continue providing a barrier for flood flows. And for a lot of properties, that can simply just be a signed statement. It doesn't have to be necessarily legally binding protection. But that only applies to public or nonprofit entities. For private owners, it does require some sort of legal protection like an easement or a deed restriction. That natural functions open space section is a bit more specific, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. These are some examples of open space properties that are eligible for the CRS program. Local and state parks, preserved land trust properties are a big one, golf courses that are owned by nonprofits, public pools, accessible waterfront, and private yards that are in regulated floodplains. I mean, there's a static regulation in place that would prevent development there. So when we got started collecting this data, we wanted to make sure that it was useful to everyone who needed it. So we actually were able to adapt the schema that was developed already by Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments. This was developed for open space, and we basically took that same schema, so it would be more widely available, and added a few more fields that tailored it to the needs of the CRS program. And those are mostly those are those acreage values at the end. Acres that are protected, acres that are in the significant flood hazard area, acres that are impervious surface, and then the overall amount of area that's eligible for the CRS program. That NFOS is the natural function open space, which is open space that's kept in its natural state. That gets some bonus points, but it's a bit harder to prove. That's something we're hoping to add as time allows. But beyond that, we also have basic values such as the owner type, the function of the property, whether it's preservation status, and so on. So to gather this data, we pulled a lot from existing data, data that we had requested from land trusts and municipalities throughout the region. The extent of this study was both the WestCOG region and Fairfield County. So we were also pulling data from municipalities in MetroCOG and one from NVCOG. We also took our existing parcel databases and searched out properties that met the definitions of open space as nearly as we could. Properties that didn't overlap, that didn't have any building footprints in them. Properties that didn't have a majority of impervious surface. Properties whose primary function required that the land be mostly undeveloped. We got a lot of attribute data by joining in our camel layers and other databases. And where possible, we hand digitize and manually enter additional data, especially for larger parcels. So now we get into the fun part, the part where we get to do a little math. This is the open space preservation analysis to get at how much credits municipalities can earn under the CRS program for these preserved open space parcels. The basic way this is calculated is by taking the maximum number of points that can be earned for protected open space, which is 1450, and then multiplying it by a ratio of the amount of CRS eligible open space divided by the total amount of acreage in the significant flood hazard area in a given municipality. So in this example here, this is a very, very small example, but you have 5.83 acres that are eligible out of 31.4 total acres of significant flood hazard area, which is about 18.5%. Multiply 1450 by that ratio to get 270 total points. So we calculated this out on a parcel level across the inventory through a process that looks sort of like this. In this example, we have this property. It's a 35.83 acre property. You can see the impervious surface here in gray. This is 2.37 acres total. This orange area here represents the significant flood hazard area, and the amount of the area of this overlap between the open space parcel and the significant flood hazard area was calculated as 6.04 acres. And the amount of impervious surface that was within that significant flood hazard area, that has to be subtracted from that value to get the final amount of land that's eligible for the CRS program.
All right. Thanks, Tucker.
Thank you, Mike.
All righty. So we're going to skip the public outreach section. That wasn't for today. Here we go, the maintenance strategy. So we have a plan to keep this data up to date because we have learned that if we just do it once and walk away, we're left with a big task of updating it again somewhere in the future. But the maintenance of it is actually kind of a light lift. It just means annually we would send each town a list of their open space properties and a map to look at them and ask the question, is this right? Are there more? Are properties removed? And the survey should allow the town to pick a point or edit and say, no, this was not, or make those comments built in. We'll have our list of stakeholders. We're gonna do this also with land trusts and any other property owners that are involved in maintaining our property inventory. And so that's our plan to keep it maintained. So let's see, I got a walkthrough. This is our written up on the side here. This is our written up strategy, just as an example. We're not going to go through that, but and in fact, you're going to see this in much better detail on an example that Tucker's going to walk us through. But your experience as a planner might be that you get an email sent to you annually from me or Tucker, and you'll get a link to a map, and you can click on a property and say this property has been added, and we will verify who the user is, so we'll know it's from your email. If you're someone we've been dealing with as a stakeholder, we can trust that source. And then you'll get directed to a survey to fill out information about that property, the name of it, maybe the amount of acres and all of that. In fact, a lot of that we might be able to calculate automatically with the GIS, so the spatial stuff we can probably calculate for you. And then we would then load it up into our open space inventory. We'd have a new updated data set with improved data. And we're also making it convenient. So we might send it annually and you'll be like, I don't have time for this. But later on, you might be like, oh, I can do it in January or March. You just you remember there's a new property, you want to edit. It's always available to collect edits. We're just sending you a reminder each year. So our application is always open to accept new and better data. So that's our approach. It's kind of like a Wikipedia approach, except we know who we should be hearing from. And so if some random person were to say, all this property is now open space, we would look at the email and say, we don't know who this person, we'd try to call it, or unless we know it's kind of debunked. So that's our strategy, kind of a Wikipedia wide grasp approach. Okay, now it looks like the end, but special surprise. Tucker's going to take you on an adventure on the app that he has built. It's got some of the survey features. I think it's pretty cool. So here we go. Tucker, it's all yours.
All right. So this is the landing page for our open space web viewer. You're greeted by a little splash screen that gives you a basic overview of the inventory. And so just from a basic look, you can see that these blue areas here represent the significant flood hazard area. And all of these green parcels are open space. If we zoom in further, it's a lot of data, so it takes a little while to load.
Yes, don't be alarmed. It's not a bunch of squares and triangles. It's just
it's loading in all the parcel boundaries, building footprints, relevant data. And then you can see a bit more of that significant flood hazard area, as well as some of these parcel boundaries. These, the regular parcel boundaries are only available when you zoom in past a certain point, just to save some of that load. So when you click on a parcel, you get a little pop-up, which tells you some of the basic attribute information for that parcel. Its preservation status, ownership, purpose, name, whether or not it's eligible for the CRS program, and a breakdown of those acreage values: full, significant flood hazard area, impervious cover, and the amount that's CRS eligible. Additionally, at the bottom here in this bar, you're able to turn these different layers on and off. So we can, if we want to declutter a little bit, we can turn off the parcel boundaries. There's additional help information right here. And this little FEMA button here at the bottom will give you a bit more background on the community rating system and what the qualifications for eligibility are. Now, this data is still fairly early. So let's say you notice that there's an issue with the data. A parcel is included as open space that probably shouldn't be, or there's a parcel that's missing, or say some of the attribute information is incorrect. We think it's not protected. It actually is. You can click this button, this link right here at the bottom of every pop-up, as well as in the help pane, and it will take you to this data correction form, where you can notify us of issues. Let's say, taking that earlier example, that a parcel is missing from the inventory. It'll pull up a little map, and you can select on the map where that missing parcel is. So we missed this little park right here. We'd get a data point of that, along with a description of the issue that you provide us, as well as name and contact info if you'd like. This way we can be revising the map as we go. Very soon, this map will also include the estimations of both CRS credits and savings on the municipal level. And that's all for the demo.
Okay, thanks, Tucker. And I have a little bit more to showcase, bonus, just so you can understand your experience here. Let's say I wanted to find this data. I will go to westcog.org. All right, here we are. And from this website, you could find this map viewer under regional planning, no, environmental, open space inventory. I have a dedicated web page for it. However, when I go in here, you'll see that I have not yet updated the website. You have a video of me talking instead. There will be a link here today of this map. I just need to load it in. So that's where the map is going to exist. But you can also find it under analytics. We have a data page. On my data page, we have the GIS Data Hub. And if you click that, that should take you to the hub. Instead, it's taking you to the section that talks about the hub. I'll be fixing that too. But you go to the Data Hub. And this is a ArcGIS way for us to share data and maps online. We're exploring this. So, you know, I apologize. We have two different ways to collect data from WestCOG. It's not where I want to be, but we're working on. This is a new feature, our hub. So eventually this will all be reconciled into one site. But in the meantime, this is what we have. But you could, is this freezing on me? No, it's not. Okay. It's a featured map in our open space inventory, so you can find it there. And then maybe you know someone who is just a data geek or the GIS guy on your team. You can find it in the search, open space. There we go, open space. Oh boy, there we go. I was getting nervous doing demonstrations. Yay.
Yeah.
And that search bar will take you to the open space data. There it is. And this is the actual data, and you can download this. I'm clicking it. Here's just the plain data set, the open space data. So this isn't the app. This is just the data. And you have an option to download the data. So that's great. So if you have someone who needs the data, the raw data, we're sharing that. And this is being updated regularly, and that's on our hub. All right, that concludes all our demos. And we thank you guys for hearing us out on our new project. And we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great. Thank you, Mike and Tucker. This was very interesting, and you actually answered my question at the end. So a town soon will be able to download a full report on which CRS eligible parcels will be are in town. That's great.